Welcome to our program again. This is part two of the conference that we had in the spring of 2017, and it was addressing all the critical challenges that we're facing here in America and throughout the world. In the first part, we discussed about building character and the importance of family and marriage in our society. Before we begin with the next session, I'd like you to watch this short video, and it's a little overview of the founder of Universal Peace Federation, Reverend Sun Myung Moon.
We see a movement of God that is being directed by a man, calling us to lay aside our denominational differences, lay aside our ethnic differences, and to lay aside our skin colors.
I think people have come to realize that we need some drastic actions in order to achieve world peace. And some of that means to overcome the barriers that have been already set up.
I think it's going to take all kinds of people, all races of people, ethnic groups and backgrounds to make this world a better place.
The culture of peace, the Federation for World Peace, is propagating and advocating in a very organized fashion with an infrastructure. That is quite significant.
I see a ray of hope that one day this world will be really a peaceful place.
The vision, in one sense, is a timeless vision. The hope of all humanity since the dawn of time has been a world of peace and a world of love.
This peace movement can be likened to the efforts, the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King. And we can see Dr. Reverend Moon dreaming about the reform of the United Nations and bringing peace to the world.
The Federation has been trying to bring people together, often facing disbelief. You know, how can you bring religious leaders together? They seem to be in their own camp and they don't want to talk to anybody else. But now, you know, after years of effort, we can see the fruits of that work.
It is time that we dream. People talk about reforms in the United Nations. People say we need reformers. But people who have changed the world have not been reformers, but crusaders. Whether it was Mahatma Gandhi, or Martin Luther King, or Reverend Moon now, they are all crusaders for peace. Crusaders who have the courage of speaking up, who have the courage to dream and draw others to them so that others also can start dreaming.
This dream, conceived by Reverend Dr. Moon for a peaceful world, it gives me a lot of hope. All over the world, we can all come together as a peace ambassador to ensure that we become our brother's keeper and that we see ourselves as one family and that true love prevails.
After all, we are human family. We've forgotten it. We forgot that we come from the same source and that we are brothers and sisters in one Creator.
We need to move to a higher level, to some spiritual level where we draw on the power of God, the Creator, to help us all, irrespective of whatever religions we might belong to begin to work together for a higher purpose.
People that I may have grown up thinking were very different from me, I learned that when it comes to peace in their community, peace in the world, their desires, their ideals are the same as mine. We shared a commonality, a brotherhood, a connection over our joint belief that not only is world peace and community peace a desirable goal, but an achievable goal.
I see people who are actually committed to the project, people who want to stand and make a difference. It doesn't matter whether we're a big institution or not. The thing is that we take responsibility and try to make a difference. And if enough people try to make a difference, I'm sure we can succeed.
I don't think many people know what the Reverend has done, how he puts things together, how he works behind the scenes to try to bring together people. What he's doing all around the world is phenomenal.
You may call him a dreamer, but then let us all also become dreamers with him. He has lit a flame, and if we follow that flame and can get emotionally involved in it, then I think humanity would move forward.
People who are a part of this vision of world peace sense that we are in some way being utilized by God.
I believe that God has been, in a sense, sitting back, waiting in anguish for humanity to mature, for humanity to grow up and to realize that we have to cooperate with God in the kingdom building task.
I'm sure all of us will inspire the others by the same way, same vision.
I would try as much as possible to ensure that we spread the word, that we talk to leaders, that we make them understand that being in this unique position of responsibility, it means that they should serve humanity selflessly.
And that's one of the things that I'm sensing, that there is that kind of commitment that Reverend Moon has modeled for us, has shown us, and now commissioned us to, in some sense, to go forth and do likewise.
I hope you enjoyed the video as an overview of the Universal Peace Federation and the work of Reverend Moon. The third session from our conference was titled Building Community and Civil Society Beyond the Boundaries of Race and Religion. Why is living for the sake of others so important? God knows that a selfish relationship is self-destructive. Nothing can flourish based on selfishness. Selfishness eventually leads to self-extinction. God knows an eternal and prospering relationship can never come about through selfish taking. So God built the universe upon the principle of unselfishness. God created everything in this universe to be complementary. Everything is made for others. The ideal husband and wife live for each other. A patriot is one who gives himself unselfishly for the benefit of the nation and of his own countrymen. According to this principle, who can we say is the greatest man in all of history? Yes, Jesus Christ was indeed the saint of all saints. He set the supreme example of a giving, loving, and unselfish way of life. He taught only to love your enemy, but he really lived that principle. He gave his life for his enemies. The Bible teaches this one principle from cover to cover, this selfless way of life in God. Jesus said there is no greater love than laying down your life for your friend. From the very beginning, God has been constantly working to bring humanity into the knowledge of this selfless way of life. One day, God will bring the perfection of that kind of life on this earth. This will be the day of the kingdom of God. In the beginning, God created a world of goodness in which only his unselfish way of life would prevail. However, the master of evil came into being and twisted the way of life around, from unselfish giving to selfish taking. All evil comes from selfishness. A world of greed and self-destruction was a result, and history has often become a nightmare. This characterizes the world in which we live today, and it characterizes the spirit world as well. How could totally unselfish world be possible? Look at the practical side of it. Suppose there is somebody who truly loves you 100% unselfishly. Oh, you are the happy person. You're bubbling with joy because of the knowledge that someone loves you so much. You want to give something back to that person to show that you love them as well. Isn't that right? Would you be stingy about returning that love so that you discounted 40 or 50% of the amount of love that you receive and kept that in your pocket, only returning 50% back? Or would you like to outlove that person and try to give more love than they gave to you? What is your reaction? Love forms a circular motion of give and take, and each time it brings back more love. It goes round and round, each time increasing the amount of love returned, creating endless motion. Circular motion alone can bring prosperity. In His wisdom, God set the principle of eternity in circular motion. Therefore, all of God's creation sustains its life in circular motion. Jesus also admonished His followers to love their enemies and pray for them that despitefully use them. This teaching fell upon the ears of many of His hearers like a strange music from a foreign land. Their ears were not attuned to the tonal qualities of such amazing love. They had been taught to love their friends and hate their enemies. Their lives had been conditioned to seek redress in the time-honored tradition of retaliation. Yet Jesus taught them that only through creative love for their enemies could they be children of their Father in heaven, and also love and forgiveness were absolutely necessary for spiritual maturity. And that's from words from Dr. Martin Luther King in his address, Strength to Love. This is titled, How Can We Balance the Secular and Sacred Dimensions of Culture? Now is the time when all the world's religions should keenly feel central responsibility for the realization of world peace and should take action for this purpose. The future happiness of humankind cannot be achieved through pursuit of economic prosperity alone, but only by overcoming conflicts between ideologies, between cultures, between races, through interreligious understanding and spiritual harmony. Originally, human beings were meant to live with their mind and body united, responding to the complete love of God. It was due to the human fall that people lost the standard of unity and harmony of their minds and bodies, and thus have been living self-centered and a contradictory lifestyle in conflict. Who can take responsibility to solve the misery and the evils in contemporary society? The confusion in values, moral corruption, drug addiction, terrorism, racial discrimination, and so on. Can politicians with political power completely solve these problems? There is great responsibility and burden which accompanies the decisions and choices made by politicians. This is true especially in the age when societies are more pluralistic than ever and are so internationally interdependent. Rulers, when making important decisions, should humbly ask to the voice coming from heaven and look for solutions through following the heavenly way. Devotion to God and His great will of true love is the mission of each religion. As such, the prosperity of each religious organization alone cannot be the purpose of religion. God demands that we come to know His great will for the saving of the world, that we practice this in our lives. Since God is the origin and parent of all of us, He does not discriminate between races or between religions. Through mutual respect and cooperation, the two houses would be able to contribute enormously to the realization of world peace. The political wisdom of the world's leaders could thus be effectively complemented by the wisdom and vision of the world's prominent religious leaders. And this is talking about a United Nations where the United Nations is not just concerned with its own entity, or each country is just concerned with their own country. But when we set up an interreligious council within the United Nations, then they can work in harmony with one another, and the religions could be able to benefit and look at the whole world rather than just the individual entity of each nation. This topic is titled Creating Harmony Between Races, Religions, and Nations. The primary question facing humankind is that of peace. For all of us to be happy, there should be no wars, conflicts, or antagonism between people. In war, it is unlikely that one victor will annihilate the enemy. There are bound to be some men left alive in the opposing side, and they'll continually look for opportunities to retaliate. The result is a vicious cycle in which the losing side from one war concentrates on becoming strong enough to dominate his former conquerors. If there is an almighty God, would he be content to put up with today's reality? Or would he do something to change the world back into its original shape? If there were someone here on earth commissioned by God to take responsibility for this cause, what would that man or group proclaim? He would declare the world's present course in error, insisting that humankind must turn around. To me, the most powerful slogan which can change the course of history: if you have such a great love that you can love your enemy, the power will melt everything. God needs churches that can melt the world down and change it into the right one. God's first problem is bringing all religions into harmony so that they will serve the original purpose of religion and the practice and the practical work with God, which God has been concerned. Does God listen to Christians who pray only for their denomination to prosper? God really feels the urge to jab them and say, stop that. Before you pray to me, make unity among all Christians. Then get together and pray to me. If you cannot unite the world, then at least you can unite with each other. God is waiting for the people on earth who will bring all these different denominations into one. God never wanted division among peoples. He would like to see all humankind living together as one country. Americans might tell God to come live with them because they have a very comfortable country. They might encourage him to disregard other struggling nations. Would God accept their invitation, or would he feel revolted by such thinking? America was right to adopt the motto, one nation under God. But it would have been better to teach one world under God. God's problem now is how to bring all nations into oneness, centering on God. This next topic is titled Original Human Value, the Foundation of Human Rights. Throughout history, there have been great philosophers who searched for the true meaning of human value, behavior, and happiness. Each one of them had to answer the fundamental question, does God exist? Philosophers try to prove or disprove God through logic, but God is too big. If you prove God's existence through logic, then God would be small enough to fit into human logic. This would mean that you would know all about him and could even create God. Religious people are much wiser. They have already made up their minds that there is a God and that he exists from the very beginning and that he will exist throughout eternity. Why then did God create mankind? Let's put the question to God. What is the most precious thing to you, God? He doesn't need money, power, or knowledge. He's the source of all these. Then what does God need? He will answer, love, life, and my ideal are the most precious things to me. But God can have life and love and his ideal all by himself. However, he wants to share and to have give and take with someone in a reciprocal relationship. The next section that we discussed, session 4, is titled America as God's Hope. What is the relevance of spiritual values and the role of faith in today's society? Since the root of human problems is not merely political, social, and political solutions alone will not be sufficient. While most societies are politically governed, religion lies at the root of most national and cultural identities. In fact, religious loyalties far outweigh political loyalties in the hearts of most people. In the 20th century, humankind has suffered 2 devastating world wars and experienced confrontation and conflict for 70 years under the oppression of the atheistic communist ideology and the Cold War era. When that came to an end, the world drank a toast in celebration of peace, albeit briefly. All too soon we came to learn that the end of the Cold War era did not lead automatically to a time of peace. Violent conflicts continue to occur throughout the world today. Even now, massacres are being perpetrated in the Middle East, Asia, in Africa, and elsewhere. It is common knowledge that many such disputes have behind them deep-rooted religious conflicts. These are only some examples that awaken us to the importance of dialogue and cooperation among religious orders. Often in the modern era, religions work toward the realization of their ideals while keeping a certain distance from the realms of worldly power. This is generally accepted as the norm. I believe, however, that it is time for those international organizations that serve the cause of a peaceful world to re-examine their relationship to the world's great religious traditions. God is calling the leaders of society, but in particular, the religious leaders. He wants us to challenge the injustices and sins of the world and establish true love in their place. All religious people should become one in heart, representing and carrying out God's aspiration for all people. A peaceful world can be realized through the synergy of the statesmanship and measures taken by politicians who represent the body and the secular world, and the wisdom and efforts of the world's religious leaders, who represent the mind of the world and of the spirit. Religious leaders should become ideal leaders who not only inherit and pass on this precious and holy wisdom of their great traditions, but also lead lives of unselfish service. The great disqualification of any leader, whether religious or political, would be selfishness. The time has come for religion to renew itself and manifest true God-centered leadership in the world. People of faith should feel responsibility for the plight, suffering, and injustices experienced by the world's peoples. Religious people have not been good examples in the practice of love and living for the sake of others, and for this reason should engage in deep self-reflection. It is time for religious people to repent for their preoccupation with individual salvation and narrow denominational interests. Such practices have prevented religious bodies from giving their utmost to the cause of world salvation. Our age, more than any other, demands that we go beyond faith and the interests of particular religions and put our love and ideals into practice for the sake of the world. What are some of the basic elements needed for America's renewal? It is time for America to awaken once again. It is time for this country to create a new movement to build God-centered true parents, true families, a true country, and a true world. In this way, America will keep God here at home. America will once again be a society that attends God. God worked 1,000 years to establish America. If he leaves America, where can he go? If America attends God properly, all the problems, family problems, moral, youth problems, and racial problems will disappear. As a place where people of all races and nations can live together in harmony, America will be a model for the kingdom of heaven on earth. What is America's mission for the world? Today we're living in an age where we must look at every individual and every nation as vital components of the world. In our world, there are basically two ways of life. One is the selfish way of life, and the other is the unselfish way of life, where one thinks beyond himself and his family and lives for the greater purpose of the nation and the world. Throughout history, whether in the East or West, those who played important roles were public-minded or selfless individuals. The well-being of the family should come before that of the individual. The nation should come before the family, the world before the nation, and God before the world. This is the philosophy of a selfless way of life. The righteous men and women and saints in history were those people who selflessly sacrificed themselves for God and humankind. Jesus Christ was indeed the supreme example of such a righteous man. The United States, composed of individuals from many races and nationalities, is already a model of the unified world. She must realize that the abundant blessings which God had been pouring upon this land are not just for America, but for the children of God. Upon the foundation of world Christianity, America must exercise her responsibility as a world leader and a chosen nation of God. What is our role as leaders? We need to take an active role in changing the course of our nation if we are to live up to the motto, one nation under God, indivisible with liberty and justice for all. We are the pinnacle nation in this world right now. But again, America has to really fulfill its responsibilities. So if these words resonate with you, if this is something that you're interested in, again, regardless of what your religion, Christian, Jew, Muslim, Buddhist, Hindu, please get in touch with us. We have a lot of, we can have a discussion group. We have a whole educational series where we can go over all the different principles of Godism, and would like to meet with all of you. And as always, I would like to offer a complimentary copy if anybody's interested in our founder, Reverend Moon's autobiography as a peace-loving global citizen. Please give me a call. My name and contact information has been up on the screen. So again, thank you for joining us today.